Hello and welcome to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz. We are breaking down day 4, day 5 of free agency. I've kind of lost track at this point. Joined, as always, PFF's own Dwayne, The Rock McFarland. Dwayne, this is our 4th podcast together since the week started. Does your family hate me yet?
No, they hate me. But no, they still love you, Ian. Nobody can hate Ian. Like, I think my hair has gotten higher each day. It's been kind of high there, Ian.
I got a buzz cut in 8th grade, and all of a sudden, people were more interested in talking to me, I guess, because I didn't have a dumbass bowl cut anymore. So I've just kept rocking it for the next 20 years since. I don't want to get away from it, man. It's just it's too risky. Stick with what you know. But enough hair talk, Dwayne. We are not hairdressers most of the time. Let's go through some of the biggest news in the past few days. And really just it starts off with Davante freaking Adams joining the Las Vegas Raiders. So this is one of those things where I think maybe the real life ramifications are being put a little bit out of, what's the right word? Packers fans are maybe freaking out a little bit too much. I understand at first when we weren't sure if Aaron Rodgers knew what was going on. And then it was like, oh my God, he did know what was going on. Wow, did he ever come back? Adams does turn 30. They tried to give him he turns 30 in December. They tried to give him more money than the Raiders were offering, but Adams wanted to go play with Carr. So it was a lifelong dream to go play with the Raiders. And if you look at the Packers, man, I think we already saw the best possible version that Rodgers and Adams could be together. I don't know how they are getting much, topping what they've done over the past 2 years. We saw in the playoffs, the whole Allen Lazard thing. Packers are 7-0 without the services of Adams under Matt LaFleur. From a real-life perspective, I understand why the Packers went ahead and didn't sign Adams to $140+ million. We still have a lot of good receivers in free agency. The draft, we can make fun of the current Packers wide receiver depth chart all we want, but it's going to look awfully different by the time week 1 comes along. I could see it as not better. Every offense in the league is better with Davante Adams on it, but if it forces Rodgers to play a little bit more within the offense, maybe it will be a net positive for the overall Packers offense. So that's kind of my real life takeaway on the matter. Obviously, the Raiders are looking much better, much more prolific on offense with Davante Adams. But Dwayne, we are a fantasy podcast after all. How far do you think Adams kind of falls down from being, I guess, the consensus wide receiver 2 behind only Cooper Kupp to now? I still think he's someone that will be going in the top 5-6 receivers. With that said, more crowded offense, new QB, albeit they played together at Fresno State. Where was your initial re-ranking of Davante Adams ahead of 2022?
Yeah, that's what I was working on this morning. I could only move him down one spot. I had him at 4. So I had Cooper Kupp 1, Justin Jefferson 2, Jamar Chase 3, and I had Davante Adams 4. So in what I will resubmit after this show to our editing team, will be Davante Adams at 5. And I think, when I look at it, it's just hard, Ian, and you tell me what your thoughts are. Once you get to the name Deebo Samuel, Stephon Diggs, A.J. Brown, Jalen Waddle, C.D. Lamb, T. Higgins, D.K. Metcalf, I don't think people are going to click on those names over Davante Adams still. No, I think you could easily see people say, all right, I'll go ahead and go with Tyreek Hill. He's got Patrick Mahomes. I'm going to go with him over Davante Adams. Maybe Adams loses 3 or 4% of his target share, making a switch right from the Packers over to the Raiders because they do have Waller. They've got Renfro. Suddenly we'll talk about Carr in a minute, but he's got 3 really good weapons that he can work with. But I think when I get to that group of names, I'm like, I think Adams still belongs above those. So has his value taken a hit? Yeah, it's taken a little bit of a hit. I think, you lose some of the upside. We know that Aaron Rodgers obviously carries a big upside as far as touchdown passes. Not to say Derek Carr can never do it, but I think that's the biggest spot that's going to hurt Adams is just, does he have the potential? Before it was like, hey, we know he could score 15 to 20 touchdowns. I don't think that's on the table anymore. But when I look at the rest of these names, I think they all have flaws. And so I think Adams, whenever it comes down to it, he's not going to fall very far just because of the way these tiers work and the way and where the breaks are in them. So my gut says that he's still going to be, to your point, a top 5 wide receiver, probably going to go at the end of the first round, maybe slides into the early second round, sometimes. And occasionally you might see people say, I'm going to take Deebo Samuel over him. I'm going to take Stephon Diggs. But I don't see this industry-wide or fantasy draft-wide consensus where all of a sudden Davante Adams is going to be just mixed in with all those other names. I think most typically he'll still go ahead of that group.
He's in that spot. If you want to rank him 4, 3, 6. I think there's a reasonable case to be made with it really anywhere there. Now, Dwayne, we've talked about this a lot more in the lead up to fantasy drafts, but first couple rounds of drafts, like these are the types of questions I think most analysts are going to be poring over for the next 5 months. It's probably going to, the ADP, I guess, is going to even out to a point that we all kind of feel pretty confident about it. I think where we can really get an edge is looking later in the draft at some of the other situations that aren't being paid attention to quite as much. And those are the players that are impacted by this trade. It's tough to have too many takeaways about the Packers right now. Again, Marquez Valdes-Scantling is still a free agent. Equanimeous St. Brown just took his talents elsewhere. They restructured Randall Cobb's contract. They are going to add potentially like 3 or 4 new receivers to the team. We will talk about them when they are finally in town and what that means for Aaron Rodgers as well. From the Raiders, though, Dwayne, this is not good for Darren Waller and Hunter Renfro. Darren Waller was someone that, we were all about taking as a top 3-round pick last year. Injuries didn't help us get that second half bounce back we were hoping for, but he's a great receiving tight end. I get that. The man had 19 freaking targets in week 1. We were picking him as high as we were because of his opportunity and really expectation, at least last year, that he would be the offense's fairly undisputed number 1 pass game option. Only a couple tight ends in the league even had the chance to get there. You throw in Waller's obvious receiving talent, and it just made him, a prime fantasy pick. Now, he's going to be the number 2, maybe number 3 option inside of his own offense. He's also about to hit the 30 years of age mark pretty soon. And we got Hunter Renfro also ascending after the best year of his career. I don't exactly think his involvement is going anywhere. We do know with Josh McDaniels now at OC, we're going to see less 3 wide receiver stuff. So all you Brian Edwards stands holding out hope for a 2022 breakout might need to wait a little bit longer. What are kind of, Dwayne, how big are you dropping Renfro and Waller? Because we talked about this. Yeah, adding someone like Davante Adams, it's going to make it easier on Renfro and Waller in terms of less coverage being devoted to them. But in fantasy football, we'll take the extra volume over a little bit of, help against certain help coverages.
Yeah, I think there's 2 sides of this, right? And they really converge to create the answer. One side is pure projecting offenses, which I honestly haven't even done yet because it's I don't want to keep redoing it. So once free agency gets done, I'm going to do them. And then I'll do it again after the draft. So that's what I'm going to be working on over these next few weeks. But yeah, it's going to hurt Waller a little bit. But then when you look at the context of who he's going around in drafts, right? Right now on Underdog, the number 1 tight end is Travis Kelce. Number 2 is Mark Andrews, right? That's fine. Kyle Pitts is number 3. Waller's 4, George Kittle's 5. I mean, he's probably still going to, just like what we talked about with Adams, I don't see him falling way down the board. Are you suddenly going to take TJ Hawkinson and Dallas Goedert and Dalton Schultz over Waller? I'm not.
They're all kind of in the same, all right,
I would still put him slightly above them, though.
Waller, I think, is out of the top tier, and now he's with these guys. You can say he's at the top of this other tier. I'd probably agree with you. But yeah, I don't think he's in the Pitts, Kelce, Andrews discussion anymore.
Yeah, so I think Waller and Kittle are their own mini tier. They're 2 guys that have shown the top end elite tight end production. Now we're gonna, and we saw it last year with Kittle playing with multiple other mouths to feed in their offense. Then I think you get the next tier, which is your Hawkinson, your Goddard, your Schultz. You could even say Gronk is going to belong in the Waller Kittle tier, right? Once he signs with Tampa, you'll have Waller, Kittle, Gronk. Then I think you get Hawkinson, Goddard, Schultz. We could debate Freiermuth and some of these other guys, but to your point, I think you get a group right below them. Actually, that was probably it. Hawkinson, Goddard, Schultz. Then you probably get another tier that's much bigger with Freiermuth, Knox, Fant, Ertz, Gesicki, Irv Smith Jr., Okwabunum, Logan Thomas, maybe, and then there's probably a cut line.
Darren Waller versus Rob Gronkowski, Dwayne. Who are you taking?
Oh, man, I'm going to take Waller. But it's really close. You know what? I'm going to mix it up. It's interesting. A lot of folks only do one fantasy team, and we have to keep that in mind, when we're giving our analysis. But for me personally, I'll have across best ball and redraft. Well, I'm going to do less this year because I don't want to drive myself nuts. But I'll have 50 to 75 teams. So I'm going to have a lot of situations where I'm going to flip back and forth between which one I want exposure to. And then, of course, ADP is going to play a huge role. If Gronk's going 3 or 4 rounds after Waller, we're obviously going to have more exposure to Gronk than we are Waller if they're in the same tier. Or we should, if we have true convictions about the way we've set our tiers up.
Tier 1, tight ends, Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, Kyle Pitts. Tier 2, Darren Waller, George Kittle, Rob Gronkowski in one order. I'm happy we got that squared away, Dwayne.
I think it feels good. I think it feels good. I think we worked through that.
It does feel good.
I feel like we should have Sigma and Bloom on. Like this, we should be on the
I
couch.
love
Like
Sig.
we should be working through this with
Sig.
Sig.
Sig was on here not too long ago.
Yeah, and didn't he talk tight ends? Yeah, you
Yeah.
guys talk tight ends.
Wow.
So yeah.
Just
anyway,
bring him on live. Yo, Sig, come on this live show we're already recording, please. Okay, let's finish things off with a little bit of talk on Hunter Renfro, who, after going through Waller, I would now say Renfro is probably the bigger loser from the whole ordeal. Like, Dwayne, we know Renfro is fantastic. We can go through, the top receiving grades again, that big list. And Renfro, I believe, was qualifying. Like, he has been nothing short of great in his short career with the Raiders. The problem is, last year, for him to really take over, he wasn't really doing this the first 7-8 weeks of the year when Henry Ruggs was in the picture. It was a little bit Amon-Ra St. Brown-esque, who you actually have ranked right next to him in terms of Renfro. Deserves credit for putting up those big numbers, but he only really did so after Ruggs was out of the picture and then once Waller was hurt for a long period of time as well. We know Devante is going to be the number one receiver in Las Vegas. You don't pay the man $141 million to be anything other than that. I believe that Derek Carr will have the best season of his career. I do think he can enable multiple fantasy relevant pass game options. He is the sort of, potential high pass volume and at least just a pocket quarterback. It's not going to be, Trey Lancing away from the rest of his fantasy relevant options.
Trey Lancing.
Yeah, we're going to make that a verb this year. That's how 2022 is going to go. Thoughts on Renfro, who you had ranked as the wide receiver 20 before this went down. I think he's certainly going to fall from that spot. Once you get a little bit lower, though, I do think
dropping him to 37.
Oh, wow.
Look, it's a tier thing, right? I know it comes across as just a number, but you have to start looking at all the receivers that he's going to be around. Like, how do you rank him ahead of, a Brandon Cooks, who's going to be the number one option on his team, even though it's bad? How do you rank him ahead of Darnell Mooney, number one option on his team, even though it could be bad, right? You're going to get more upside out of Garrett Wilson, Treylon Burks, and their potential landing spots right now. Adam Thielen, we know, is coming back with the Vikings. So I think you're starting to get into the right range here. Thielen's going to be the second or third option on a team with a pretty good quarterback. I think that's what Hunter Renfro is going to be, the second or third option on a team with a pretty good quarterback. I like the fact that the Raiders are playing in a division that's going to force them to have to be in shootouts. So I think you're going to see a more pass-heavy version of the Raiders, and that's what I'm going to do with their offense in my projections. But at the same time, it's just hard, to your point, to see, like, before I thought there was this real top-end upside of 150, 175 targets for Renfro in the Josh McDaniels offense. I think he's still going to play in a friendly offense that's going to keep him on the field. But to your point, with having Davante Adams there, I just feel like, there's no way to think he has upside for a 30% target share. He had that before. Now I think he's probably living somewhere between like 18 and 22% is what we're hoping for from a target share standpoint, in an offense that should pass a little more, but that puts him in the realm of where we are here. Like, you got Christian Kirk's probably going to be the number one receiver on the Jaguars. Renfro's probably going to be the third receiver on a better offense. So these aren't exact. These are just, as we work through these, they'll get tighter and tighter and tighter. But I think this is about the range for Renfro. So I'm thinking, like, if you had to call this a tier, it's really low-end wide receiver 3. I mean, what do you think?
This is actually the exact nice little transition opportunity here. This is where I kind of determined after writing an article on PFF.com about Allen Robinson's new landing spot signing with the Rams. I'm with you because I kind of had the same thought process when I was going through Robinson LA. We know Cooper Kupp's going to be the guy. We got Woods there. It's possible that Robinson, and we'll talk about the Woods trade rumors and all that, but it is possible, as I was going through this yesterday, for Robinson to be the number 3 option more weeks than not in Los Angeles. So, yeah. I had the exact same thought process of Darnell Mooney, Brandon Cooks. They have to be ahead of them just because of the pure target volume. We can talk about, the rookie wide receivers. They're kind of getting it figured out based on the landing spots. And that takes us to that tier. Adam Thielen, Christian Kirk, Kadarius Toney, Brandon Ayuk, Robert Woods, Chase Claypool, even Tyler Boyd. There will be guys that we're going to have closer to the top of that tier than the bottom, but that low-end wide receiver 3 range does have a lot of guys that great real-life football players just might not have enough volume for us to really prioritize, make a stand on one that much more than the other. But, Dwayne, let's talk about that Allen Robinson deal. I was pretty damn surprised. 3 years, $46.5 million. Hey, not exactly getting, even Mike Williams money at this point, which is a shame. Lord knows not Christian Kirk money. Come on, Allen Robinson's agent. What are you doing out here? Either way, a lot of money to go now. Be Matthew Stafford's again, maybe number 2, maybe number 3 receiver. The Rams also allegedly still want to bring back OBJ too. So the bigger news, I guess, was after this, because the Rams are not really, from what I heard on Twitter, famous last words, but based on the Robert Woods deal with, the amount of money he has guaranteed with injuries and all that, it's not really a contract they can get out of that easily just by cutting the guy. But per Adam Schefter, Robert Woods is now a prime trade candidate. So not exactly sure if he's going to be back. We don't know how the injury recovery is going. Apparently they still want to bring back OBJ too. Once again, he's dealing with an iffy timeline as well with that injury. So Dwayne, again, if Woods is back, I'm not even so OBJ is not going to be a factor, I think, for the first couple months of the season recovering from injury. So we can kind of leave him out of the picture for now. If Woods is back, I think Robinson slides right into that tier we were just talking about. If Woods gets traded and now Allen Robinson is Matthew Stafford's fairly undisputed number 2 receiver, I'm down to bump him up. But how far, Dwayne? That's kind of the question. Because even then, I don't think we're looking at like a top 24 guy here.
No, we're not. I mean, I think he would have potential. We would put his range of outcomes being he could be, a solid wide receiver too, if Robert Woods is gone. This will by far be the best quarterback that Allen Robinson has ever played with. I think you did a good job in your article. You took it a step further. You went all the way back into college of Penn State.
Not McGloin, Christian Hackenberg.
Yeah, you got to pull it up and read the list for the folks just listening on the pod. But I think Robinson, if Woods is gone, he will be a borderline top 24 guy. But I'm with you. I'm still going to have him probably in that next 12, just below. But acknowledging there's upside. If they are both there, it's just really hard to think of either one of them as anything more than a low-end wide receiver 3. Could they pay off being more? Yeah, but we know Cooper Kupp is the 1A, almost 1A, 1B. And I don't know if I tweeted it out to Allen Robinson. I mean, I'm trying to help him out. Like, I heard that lunches are still available on Matthew Stafford's calendar. We know breakfast prime time is gone. Cooper Kupp's got those locked down. But I think just too much target competition. And then if OBJ were to come back too, oh my gosh, like it would just be great for Stafford, great for the Rams, great for real life, or at least good. You've kind of documented that these things don't always work out. I do think Robinson's a good enough player that he could, be someone that actually bucks the trend of what we've seen with some of these high-priced free agents.
Wide receiver is the one position where we've seen some hits in there, and these are kind of the wide receivers that I'll list that have earned at least $30 million with a new team on the open market since 2016. Marvin Jones with the Lions, decent enough career. Mohamed Sanu with the Falcons, had some okay times. Pierre Garçon with the 49ers, not so much. Robert Woods with the Rams, that was a good time. He got hurt last year, but he was putting up numbers. Vincent Jackson with the Bucks, a little late in his career. Kenny Pitt with the Browns, Sammy Watkins with the Chiefs, Allen Robinson with the Bears. He had a couple good years in there. Paul Richardson with Washington, no. Tyrell Williams for the Raiders, no. Golden Tate Giants, no. Adam Humphries Titans, no. Kenny Galladay Giants, not so far. Corey Davis with the Jets, Curtis Samuel with the Washington Commanders remains to be seen. So not great, but it's a quarterback upgrade. My God, Dwayne. This is why, don't be a slave to your spreadsheet. We can't just look at a trend and assume it's going to continue because of what's happened in the past, because he finally gets to play with a real life quarterback. Penn State, Allen Robinson caught passes from Matt McGloin and Christian Hackenberg. After that, Blake Bortles, Chad Henne, Mitch Trubisky, Chase Daniel, Nick Foles, Andy Dalton, and a rookie year version of Justin Fields. That is going to be a sheesh from me. With Allen Robinson's fantasy stock, without Robert Woods, it's wild that it's A-Rob and we're still not really looking at a potential like top 15 year as in his range of outcomes, but I don't think he really has it, Dwayne. If you look at OBJ last year, he did everything we could have hoped for. Like, I think the biggest OBJ haters were shocked at how good he was last year. It wasn't all that great for fantasy. Now, he had a great run in the playoffs that obviously we don't get the fantasy finishes for, but if you just look at Beckham in his 10 full games, I'm not counting the first game against I think it was the Niners where he played 15 snaps or whatever. 10 full games, Beckham finished as the PPR wide receiver 10, 33, 11, 102, 28, 21, and 83. So we're not looking at someone that's going to be having enough volume behind Kupp if that's what the Rams are going to do again in 2022. And let's also not act like Allen Robinson has been someone that throughout his career has consistently been a wide receiver 1. He was before last year a consistent wide receiver, low-end wide receiver 1 to wide receiver 3. But I mean, this was kind of the issue and kind of the reason why I guess I was a little bit lower on Robinson last year, because we saw it in 2015, wide receiver 8 overall with Blake Bortles in the center. That was sick. What happened in 2016? Blake Bortles was still under center. Robinson couldn't overcome it, and his fantasy points per game fell from 19 to 12.5, finished as just the wide receiver 34. So the fact that from 2014 to 2020, Robinson finished as either the wide receiver 8 to wide receiver 35 in points per game, that's great. That's a floor as a wide receiver 3. He's not going to be ranked that much lower with the Rams. But yeah, there's only one ball to go around in this offense. We haven't even talked about potential for more run-heavy group with Cam Akers. Maybe Tyler Higbee takes a step forward. Just only one ball to go around in LA. But Dwayne, it's a scary-ass real-life offense. I mean, this is some Madden shit going on.
Yeah. I think, again, the real-life takeaway and the Matthew Stafford takeaway is this ultimately is going to be good for the Rams offense. But I think we've hit it. Like, he's going to be a wide receiver 3 to wide receiver 4, high-end wide receiver 3 with wide receiver 2 upside if Woods moves on. If Woods does not move on, you're looking at low-end wide receiver 3, high-end wide receiver 4, where you're going to see these spikes and valleys because we know that most of the offense is going to continue to run through Cooper Kupp. Now, you could get some upside if all of a sudden Cooper Kupp sustained an injury. Then, yeah, you could see, if Robinson does have enough left in the tank, he could become the focal point of the offense. But we could say that about a lot of receivers.
Yeah, we're not going to start going through what happens if every team's wide receiver 1 gets hurt. That would be a conversation for another day, maybe never a day, Dwayne. Deshaun Watson, guy in the news everywhere. He has eliminated the Panthers and the Browns from contention. He is now allegedly just down to the Saints or the Falcons. Sounds like from reports that this deal is going to go through the weekend. I mean, as early as like Tuesday, Wednesday this week, we were starting to get reports that, decision could be imminent this afternoon. So one of those, we'll believe it when we see it type of ordeals. Dwayne, I'm looking forward to spending some of this weekend, actually all this weekend, from the sunshine in Las Vegas. You have some fun family things you're going to do down there in Tejas. So what we're going to do next is basically pretend that Watson has gone to the Saints and then he's gone to the Falcons, basically covering our bases in the event that he goes to either over the next few days. Great day to be great. Let's look at these two scenarios. And before we get, into that, this is going to come along with a suspension, seemingly. You do not need to be guilty in the eyes of the court in order to get a suspension from Roger Goodell. We saw this with Tom Brady. We saw this with Ezekiel Elliott. I'm not trying to compare the crimes at hand, but based on what we've seen from smarter people around the industry, Yahoo's Charles Robinson, I believe, was throwing out 6 games as a potential suspension. I've seen 8. Maybe it's less, maybe it's more, but we got to realize there is most likely going to be a stretch of time.
I did see something interesting. I can't remember who I saw. It was just a tweet that I happened to scroll by yesterday of most of the folks that, even though, there may not have actually been action taken against them, like there was some sort of video evidence, right? And with Watson, apparently there isn't any. So will that be a factor? I don't know, but there was a good list of all the names, and the video evidence that was there. Despite the fact that it didn't head that way from a legal standpoint. So we'll see. But to your point, my guess is there's going to be some sort of suspension, but I guess we have to consider there is a possibility in the range of outcomes that there's not going to be one.
That video evidence part, that was the.
I don't know that I want to see any video evidence for.
Well, but that was the thing with the, that's what made the Ray Rice thing so ridiculous at first. He gets the 2-game suspension for, allegedly knocking out a girl. And then it's you gave 2 games for that. And then you got the video evidence. And now you're appalled. Hold on.
It brings things to life though, man.
Yeah, it does. It's unfortunate,
When you see it. Yeah, you can't unsee it.
Happier topics here. Let's talk about Deshaun Watson, the football player. In my opinion, a true top 5 real life and fantasy quarterback. Dwayne, if he goes to the Saints, we don't have Sean Payton there, but they basically kept the rest of the band back together. Alvin Kamara, one of the best pass-catching running backs in the league. He's got a couple legal things to figure out himself. We'll keep an eye on that throughout the offseason. Also, Michael Thomas, after taking all of last year off, it does sound like he is coming back much, much closer to 100% in 2022. Should be the first time since 2019 that we get to see can't guard Mike back in action for an entire season. Beyond that, we still have some question marks. The Saints have been really jumping through a lot of hoops in the salary cap world to get them, back in a position to get Watson, hopefully some other players. With that said, Traequan Smith is an unrestricted free agent. I do believe they brought back not Deontay Harris, Deontay Hardy. Let's remember that he changed his name towards the end of last year. So it's not exactly the most loaded offense, but damn, Dwayne, it's Deshaun Watson. It's not, he had Hopkins over the years, but Fuller was hurt a lot of the time. And then his last year, he had Fuller and Brandon Cooks. It's not like Watson is used to working in, what Matthew Stafford is now finding himself in with Los Angeles. He's never had like 3 or 4 high-end receivers running all over the place. He's largely made the most of, I believe, average to above average offenses. So if Deshaun Watson lands on the Saints, potential suspension aside, like this is for so we can compare him more straight up to the players and not get into, what do we make of 75% of Deshaun Watson? Suspension aside, where do you think Deshaun Watson kind of goes into the fantasy quarterback hierarchy if he becomes a member of the New Orleans Saints?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to just say with suspension aside. If we knew that there wasn't a suspension, like he's in the top 5, like he's in the top 5, period. Like you could make an argument that he's in the top 3. I would have Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, and then you'd probably have Deshaun Watson ahead of Kyler Murray, and then you would have Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson. Those guys would all be, in the picture. Then you get to your next group, right, which are really more your passers that have the big passing upside but don't have the legs. So I think Deshaun Watson firmly fits in that top conversation. I think people could even make an argument that he's the number 2. Given what he's done, but definitely in the top 5. When you have to account for the fact that there could be some sort of a suspension, I think you just have to have him in your top 12. You may have him just slightly outside of that. You may have him slightly inside of that. But right now at ADP, and it's going to be shooting upward, right? It was 113 as of like Wednesday on Underdog. So he was the 14th quarterback off the board. We know that's going to be going up. But I could make an argument that once you get to Lamar Jackson, right, and let's say you let Brady and Burrow and some of these other guys go, we know Aaron Rodgers is probably going to fall a little bit, but I think that would kind of be the spot. Once Brady and Burrow go, like you might be willing to go ahead and just pull the trigger on Watson right there, ahead of Prescott, ahead of Hurts, ahead of Russ Wilson, Matthew Stafford, Trey Lance, all those guys.
Especially, and I know I said we're not going to worry about the suspension, but if it is going to be of a somewhat shorter length and you're just in a traditional 1 QB redraft league, there's enough guys to get you through these first few weeks of the year. We don't have the early season schedules yet, but last year I couldn't go more than the podcast without screaming at all of you to go get Kirk Cousins just for the first 5-6 weeks of the year. That was to hopefully get us on a bridge long enough to get Trey Lance or Justin Fields under center. I know the second half of that didn't exactly work out the way we were planning, but Cousins was terrorizing some of those opponents on the early part of his schedule. I think there's more than
some easy ones, Ian, and we don't know the schedule to your point, but they would fit that bill. Carr is going 17, might move up a little bit. Cousins going QB 15. Ryan Tannehill going QB 18. I think those are all guys that you really know what they are, and they're not going to be great, but they're not going to be terrible. Once you get past that, you get into a tier of really you're swinging for upside, so it's probably not the right strategy, like if you're going to go with Deshaun Watson, because you get into Trevor Lawrence, you get into young guys like Mac Jones, Mitch Trubisky, who can run, but now we'll have the weapons, Malik Willis, who can run. Those sort of guys. But I think you get a pretty safe little spot there between Carr, Cousins, and Tannehill. You could easily say for the first 4 weeks, I roll with one of those guys. I know what I'm going to get for the most part, and then I'm switching to Deshaun Watson. Like I think you could easily pull off a strategy like that.
17 game projection. I don't know how you could rank him lower than 6th. I mean, Allen, Mahomes, Kyler, Herbert, Jackson. I'm with you. I think I would probably rank him QB3 out of that group. That certainly would be the top tier, 1A, 1B tier, however you want to call it. Because, I mean, my goodness, 2017, Watson's first year, 24.1 fantasy points per game, number 1 among all qualified quarterbacks. 2018, tied for 4th. 2019, 3rd. 2020, he fell to 6th, but it was actually more fantasy points than he had the previous 2 years. It was just kind of like a big year for fantasy quarterbacks in 2020. NFL history, Dwayne, 22 fantasy points per game, 3rd highest mark ever behind only Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. Look at your real life stats. PFF passing grade, he's 8th since entering the league. QB rating, 4th. Yards per attempt, 2nd. The guy is an absolute stud on the football field. What would this now mean for our Alvin Kamaras and our Michael Thomases of the world? We've talked about, the impact that mobile quarterbacks can have on running backs at length. With that said, Alvin Kamara as the focal point of the Saints offense. I mean, we saw last year they were giving him this kind of new 20-plus carry role really before he was getting banged up there in the middle of the year. And I just think that enough of it could be designed in an offense without a bunch of pass catchers that, we'll take that extra scoring upside we're getting with Deshaun under center and not worry too much about maybe 5 fewer targets for Kamara on the year. So I think Kamara is someone that is right there in the top 5 running back conversation. Michael Thomas, Dwayne, comes back into wide receiver 1 territory? Because Michael Thomas is one of the few receivers that we've actually seen not have his guy under center and still put up big numbers. We saw him break the freaking reception record with Drew Brees, but then Brees gets hurt the next year. Or no, it was during that year he broke it with Brees and also Teddy Bridgewater, who, if you're a Denver Broncos fantasy fan, I think you kind of saw not necessarily the easiest thing to put up big numbers with Teddy under center. And then next year, he puts up multiple 100-yard games with Taysom Hill. Michael Thomas, where would you rank him with Deshaun Watson under center, Dwayne?
Yeah, with Thomas, it's tough just because it's been 2 years. We just don't know for sure. But, I mean, if you look at him, he should probably, if you were looking at the rosy picture, I would easily think as a 30-year-old receiver, you could rank him with the other 30-year-old receivers, DeAndre Hopkins, Keenan Allen. I feel like that really is the range if you wanted to get aggressive with Michael Thomas. The cool thing is I don't think you're going to have to do that. Even if Deshaun Watson signs there, I think Michael Thomas will continue because, I mean, I just, I'll throw things out there randomly on Twitter a lot of times just to kind of see how people react, kind of get the gauge of where, the sentiment around the industry is. And, it was real. The responses were littered with just will never happen. Never happen. Hadn't played in 2 years. Never happened. Never happened. So I think you're going to continue to get a discount on Michael Thomas. And I do believe that he has a range of outcomes, Ian, that could be in the top 12 wide receivers, right? Devante Adams is a 30-year-old receiver, and he had target shares, similar role to Michael Thomas. He's just been healthy. So looking at the rest of the Saints options, like Marquez Callaway, we tried that last year. Didn't really work. I mean, I think he could end up being better with, Watson. But then to your point, you've got really Alvin Kamara is the other option. If those two guys, as long as they're healthy, they're going to be the two getting the most targets. Obviously, other things could happen with the offense, but I don't see any names that would be coming in that would probably make me just be like, oh, wow, like that just preempted what I thought of Michael Thomas. So I'm honestly struggling a little bit trying to figure out like what I'm going to do with Thomas. I'm thinking through it ahead of time. So like when the news breaks, like where does he go? But I think I am going to get him inside my top 24. I think you have to. And I think you have to be willing to be a little bit more aggressive. I know he's 30. Dynasty, you would treat this differently. This is truly, us just talking redraft. But I think I'm going to have to find a way just to get him inside that top 24 to make sure that when he does slide in drafts, that people are going to go ahead and take a stab. Right now on Underdog, he's going 26. So I don't know how much that's really going to help people, as far as, trying to be a little more aggressive with Michael Thomas. I may have to think about, do I rank him a little bit higher than that? Because he is a name that I think that you're going to want to have some good exposure to at his current draft capital.
Save me the slant boy slander. Let's get a quarterback that can throw the ball further than 30 yards downfield. Maybe Michael Thomas going into last year had caught 33 of 36 catchable targets on at least 20 yards downfield. Fourth highest mark among 64 qualified receivers since 2016. He catches a shit ton of slants. Nobody is debating that. He's awesome on slants. He's also pretty good on the other stuff. I care, Dwayne. He's a former Buckeye. I got to root for my freak.
Well, yeah, but I mean, being good at slants is not bad. Like slants and hook, hitch routes are the two most popular routes in the NFL. So it's not like it's bad being good at them.
Let's start making fun of Steph Curry for only shooting threes.
Yeah, exactly. So let's do a little quick thing here, Ian. So I'm going to give you a name, and then you tell me, and we'll start lower, right? And you tell me if you would like Michael Thomas over this player. These are players that I have ahead of him in the ranks right now. Mike Williams.
Give me Michael Thomas.
Me too. Devonta Smith.
Michael Thomas.
Me too. Amari Cooper.
Michael Thomas.
Jerry Jeudy.
Michael Thomas.
You're probably thinking, Dwayne, your list is just bad. Marquise Brown.
Michael Thomas, man.
Yeah, Michael Pittman.
Thomas.
And we got to see quarterback. Quarterback does matter for the Colts. Like if all of a sudden they end up with Matt Ryan, and for Cooper as well. Yes. So I think we're kind of getting in the range. So we're at wide receiver 22 now. Chris Godwin.
Ooh, I think Godwin should be Godwin with the injury.
Godwin's the injury thing. If he wasn't dealing with the injury, he'd be more like wide receiver 15. Terry McLaurin.
With Wentz, my God.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I think we're probably around here.
Getting in the range. I agree. But I think, we could make arguments either way about the upside, right, of these players. I know Michael Thomas is older, but we shouldn't always just equate upside to age. If you do, you're going to miss on players like Cooper Kupp last year. I mean, he was 29 or he's 28 years old, and all of a sudden he blew up and he was the wide receiver 1. So upside doesn't always just associate, with a player being younger. If you can get a good draft price, right? That's what the market is, ADP, on a player that's older but still has upside. I think Michael Thomas fits that description pretty well. You are taking on risk because of the injury, but that's why you're getting him for less. And that's why he has the upside. Like it all meshes together to when you really just kind of got to take a step back and think about what's your strategy. How are you trying to find, that asymmetrical upside based on ADP? And I think Michael Thomas is in the conversation.
It does seem awfully convenient that Will Fuller hasn't signed anywhere yet. Maybe a package deal of sorts.
Oh,
and
yeah.
my God, like Fuller has that field stretching ability that truly makes all 32 offenses better. Like if Fuller comes there, I'm booming Fuller up the ranks, but I don't even think that would necessarily impact Michael Thomas or, as we're about to talk about, Kyle Pitts all that much.
That would help. That would help Michael Thomas.
Exactly.
We know Michael Thomas is still going to probably be the guy that gets peppered with the most targets, but just given the field stretcher, to make the things underneath for Kamara and for Thomas work better, and then also giving, that big play upside. Will Fuller would carry his own value, but to your point, I don't think it would come at the detriment, or at the cost of Michael.
They still need to add wide receivers. It's like what we talked about with the Monra St. Brown. Like, yeah, DJ Chark can go in and maybe do his own thing, but like they need to add guys. The fact they added a player like Chark is good for Monra St. Brown. A player like Fuller will be good for Michael Thomas. Let's look at the Falcons side of things. Deshaun does have the hometown vibes going with Atlanta, former ball boy, the whole 9 yards, similar to Green Bay and kind of New Orleans. Like, yeah, we can talk shit about the Falcons wide receiver room for the moment. I think we're all well aware they are going to make some major moves in the rest of free agency and throughout the draft there. With that said, it is pretty gross. I hope Olamide Zaccheaus is not going to be in 3 wide receiver sets when the season starts. We will see. For right now, Dwayne, it's really just the only guy we can talk about is Kyle Pitts. We already have him as tight end 3. I mean, I'm not leaping him ahead of Kelsey or Andrews if Deshaun Watson goes there. I would feel a lot better, like maybe he just moves up kind of on the overall ADP, not so much at his position. Would you just be expecting the moon for Kyle Pitts with Watson, or are we just kind of looking at it and it's like, hey, he's going to get force-fed targets because there's no one else to throw the ball to in Atlanta?
Yeah, I don't know that Deshaun Watson makes a huge difference for Kyle Pitts. Like Kyle Pitts is the only game in town. He's a young ascending talent. Yes, we like Deshaun Watson better than Matt Ryan, but Matt Ryan's a functional quarterback. Like he can get the ball to Kyle Pitts. So I don't think it should have the impact that it may. I think you will see certain folks making a stand, and they're going to take Kyle Pitts number 1 overall at the position in their drafts. I think you're definitely going to see that. And so I think most likely the Deshaun Watson thing is going to have, probably, not a huge impact on where Pitts is going, but I think it will, like I said, it'll cause more people to take that chance and just take him as number 1, and which I'm fine with. I think he belongs in the tier with Andrews, Kelsey. I think you just got to go ahead and put Pitts in there. If you want to draw a mini line in the tier after Kelsey, I get it. You could do that. Then you have Pitts in a tier of his own. Then you get Waller and Kittle and the other guys that we talked about behind them. But at the end of the day, like for me, it's not a huge thing for me with Pitts. With Watson, I think it's going to be more just like people think that. Like we've done the studies on how good a quarterback has to be to truly impact, the receivers and tight ends.
Right.
Like they have to be top notch elite or way at the very bottom terrible to make a huge difference for the guys we're throwing through. Really, everything in between doesn't move the needle that much for fantasy receivers and tight ends.
Are we even moving the needle much on Watson's personal rank for Saints versus Falcons? Like, I agree. I think that
slightly better for Saints, I think, but not
slightly better at this moment in time. But it could easily swing based on the rest of free agency.
For sure. Why do we even do these shows?
Why? I don't know.
Why do we do them? I don't know. Because every time you put anything out there, it's like, yeah, but all this could happen. You're like, yeah, I know. Like, we'll have to figure that out when it gets here. But no, to your point, like right now, give slight edge to the Saints. But Falcons could easily swing that if they get Watson and then they go make some other moves.
Let's just explain to our bosses that actually it's smart to never do shows or content because it's just all going to be outdated. It's like, what do you want us to do, man? Like we're just trying to, do no podcasts or articles ever because we're just trying to do the smart thing.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know that they would go for that. I'll let you float it up the chain.
We have talked Adams, Robinson, Deshaun Watson.
Real quick, Ian, let's talk just real quick about the Packers again. So we know we've got Adams gone. Like you mentioned, there's still a lot of things that are going to happen. It looks really good for Lazard right now, but I think we both agree Lazard is really a wide receiver 2 or a wide receiver 3. Even if they didn't add anyone, which they're gonna, like I wouldn't go over the moon for Allen Lazard. Like we've just been there too many times. Certain guys, like, my guess is 20% target share is probably about the cap for Allen Lazard and his skill set. But most likely, you got the Packers sitting there with pick 22, pick 28 in the draft. They're probably taking a receiver in the first round. And if they don't, your favorite thing will happen in the streets, and it will be a riot with Girl Scout, girls running all over the place. So anyway, like thinking about the rookie receivers, like if you think you have a good line on which one's going to be there and be available for the Packers and which one they want, you're probably looking at, once it's all said and done, and whoever the Packers take, that receiver is going to have a really good chance of catapulting even receivers that may go earlier in the draft as being the number one rookie receiver off the board. So, I mean, Garrett Wilson right now is mocking ahead of that. Drake London slightly mocking ahead, but he's in the range. Pick 19 right now is where he's going on grinding the mocks. And then you get down into the guys that are going to look like they'll be available for the Packers at their pick, with Traylon Burks right now, with Chris Olave, with Jamison Williams, with him coming off the ACL, and I love him, but I think the Packers might be leaning more towards a player they know for sure can help them right out of the gate. So that's just one angle to consider. Like if you take Drake London now and he ends up going in the first, you're drafting today in best ball and you're getting Drake London in round 8, 9, 10. If he goes to the Packers, like how high do you think Drake London jumps? Chris Olave, Traylon Burks, like they're going to be 5th, 6th round picks, like if they go to Green Bay.
I think particularly with everyone having seen, what Chase and Jefferson have done. I mean, I think we need to probably get more used to these rookie receivers making a bigger impact early in their career, particularly when we have these situations where it is the high first-round draft capital in an offense that badly needs weapons to go pick up the slack. Have our PFF big board showing on the screen. 5 wide receivers are inside of the top 32 overall. Drake London, PFF's 11th overall player. Garrett Wilson, 12th. Jamison Williams, 16th. Chris Olave, 21st. And Traylon Burks, 31st. From me, Dwayne, I think Olave can make a lot of sense there. I've seen that floated out there. He's kind of gotten this, I think, reputation in the draft as being kind of the most pro-ready receiver. I believe our own Mike Renner actually comped Olave to a Calvin Ridley where, okay, maybe you don't have, the same astronomical ceiling as a Traylon Burks, but Olave, you can come in, he can help you stretch the field immediately. He's a great route runner. He's not the 5-tool receiver. We know he's not, incredible after the catch or anything like that, but he should be, he's going around the spot the Packers are going to be picking. And I do think that, you have less overall questions about his ability to produce from day one. Do you have a fit that you're hoping for?
I like all of them. I mean, I think Olave would be great. Like whenever I did my analysis on the rookie receivers, I've got an article out there if folks want to go look at it. Like, I kind of gave titles to a lot of the guys, and Olave, like he got my Mr. Everything. Like he runs all the staple routes well, like that the NFL loves, that the Packers love. He's shown an ability to separate against press coverage. Like he probably needs more play strength, but a lot of receivers do when they come into the league. And the rules are so stacked against the DBs now. I don't even know how much that matters. And I think that goes back to your point earlier of how we should get more used to these receivers coming in and being ready. One, the college game has changed, and the high school game has changed. So these guys are used to playing receiver like from a way younger age. So they're better when they come into the league. And then you have the compounding factor of the NFL wants points. They want yards. So they're doing everything they can to limit the defenses. I would not want to be a defensive back having to play against a player like Chris Olave. I think he's going to have an immediate advantage in the NFL due to all the rule changes that we've seen over the past 10 years. So I'm good with any of them. I think Traylon Burks obviously would get folks the most excited, but I think he would also come with the most question marks because we just don't know, can he consistently win against press man coverage outside, or do they just find a way to say, well, we don't care. We'll do what Arkansas did. We'll get him in the backfield. We'll put him in the slot. We'll keep him in motion. Those things are all within play. There's no doubt that when you get the ball to Traylon Burks in the open field and let him get going, the dude's just a massive human being. It's going to be tough to deal with. So I think any one of them, whether it's Drake London, whether it's Olave, hey, if Garrett Wilson fell, he would be in the same conversation. think when you get to pair them with Aaron Rodgers and the opportunity for them to come in and be the number one target on the Packers right away, I think you're going to see good value if you're drafting those players today versus once they're signed, with the Packers.
Just get ready to hear about how smooth Chris Olave is every single time a new fan base talks about him joining the team. He is, but we've heard it. Let's get a different adjective going, everyone. Before we move on to the rest of the podcast, I want to give a quick shout out to some of the sponsors, including our company, PFF. You can get 25% off any PFF subscription if you use code FANTASY. What can you get with that subscription? All of PFF's locked article content or NFL draft guide, completely unlocked mock draft simulator, 2022 free agent rankings, reactions, data and grades from the entire 2021 season, all that and so much more. Support the pod. Use promo code FANTASY for 25% off any subscription. Again, code FANTASY for 25% off any sub. And also, can I get a round of applause, everyone? Today, I'm excited to announce Manscaped launched their ultra premium collection. Believe it or not, is for your not so private parts. I'm talking about a leveled up hygiene routine with your favorite manly scent. This is an all-in-one skin and hair care for the everyday man and covers you from head to toe, literally. Manscaped is trusted below the waist. Now trust them with the rest. Join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping with the code PFF. We got, Manscaped body wash. We got a 2-in-1 shampoo conditioner, hydrating body moisturizer, Manscaped deodorant, all that and so much more. Again, 20% off and free shipping with code PFF at manscaped.com. The power of attraction is now in a bottle thanks to Manscaped. Finally, want to give a shout out to our friends over at All-22 who are unveiling the newest fantasy football game that hundreds of PFF employees have been playing. All-22 uses weekly PFF grades as one of its main scoring components and tests your ability to build a full 53-man roster, offensive line included. If you ever dreamt of sitting in an NFL front office, if you enjoy a scouting process, you're going to want to check out All-22. Join the waitlist on all-22.com with nothing more than your email. If you join the waitlist before the NFL draft, you'll receive a special promo code for your All-22 subscription. Waitlist users will even gain access to premium content like inaugural draft guides and season strategies, feature release announcements, and more. Be sure to follow at all22_PFF on Twitter. All-22 premium fantasy football powered by PFF. Dwayne, I'm not sure if I was responsible for getting them to change their tagline. I was shitting on their less
I was
fantasy.
wondering that.
I hated less fantasy, more
I think
football.
you might have been.
I wanted more fantasy, more football, but now it's just going to be premium fantasy football powered by PFF. I can work with that. I'm not.
You know what they say about you, Ian?
What?
You're kind of a big deal.
You could imagine. Not as big as Chris Olave. All right, Dwayne, a couple more situations. We've hit the big dogs already, but the Falcons did go ahead and sign Damien Williams to a 1-year deal. This now gives them Damien Williams, Mike Davis, Quadri Allison, and Caleb Huntley in their backfield. That's it. Now, when we have some of these, free agents, your Cordero Pattersons, your Leonard Fournettes, your Melvin Gordons, the longer they stay free agents, I tend to think the better chance they have of coming back to their original squad. So maybe CPAT comes back to Atlanta, once again splits its backfield with either Davis or Williams, maybe even Quadri Allison. There's still plenty of free agency time. There's plenty of time in the draft as well.
If you got CPAT back to Atlanta now with Russell Gage gone, with no Calvin Ridley, you got Pitts now with Watson. Dude, he is way too cheap right now. He's gonna sign somewhere, and I know the question is, can he sign somewhere where schematically they can duplicate what Arthur Smith was able to do with him? And I think that's legit. I think that's a legit concern, but I think it's probably a little bit it's a value right now. He's one of the people that I don't mind taking a swing on as far as ADP goes. Right now on Underdog, he is pick 37, RB 37. I mean, come on. As soon as he signs, he'll be inside the top 36. And depending on where he signs, he could climb into the top 24, right?
I think Atlanta is by far the best spot for him. Let's just kind of run through some teams real quick. Where do we think that CPAT could go elsewhere that would really afford him the same sort of volume? I think some other teams could use, if he goes to the 49ers, I'm sure Kyle Shanahan will use him great, but there's only one ball sporadic to go around. Yeah. That's the problem, man. There's just not the Texans. Okay. You can put
I think the Titans could totally use him. They really don't have a great weapon opposite of AJ Brown.
Titans is a good one.
And they need someone to help Derrick Henry. Right. So I could think that would be a great spot. Texans, but we just don't like the Texans, not the Jaguars, because you already got two. Dude, the Chiefs would be a great one. Like Chiefs, just screw it. Like man, if you had him in the backfield every play, golly, like we hear people talking about, oh, go get CMC, go sign CPAT for nearly nothing and put him on the Chiefs. Oh my God. Like that would
he would look good in Chiefs colors too.
That would be nuts. That would be nuts. But then keep going.
Not really.
Yeah, I'm looking. No on the Vikings, no on the Bears. We've already done that.
Don't want the Lions. I don't think.
Yeah, I mean the Bucks would be interesting. Like we didn't get the passing down role for Gio, but you got a lot of mouths to feed.
The Saints could kind of work.
Maybe, but then you're going to bump it into Kamara.
I know, but go play more wide receiver this year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at it that way, I mean, we're thinking of him more of as a hybrid player. Like if you look at him just as a receiver, I think it definitely opens up possibilities. But
Seahawks,
to your point, there's not a ton of teams where you're just like, wow, there's all this open, volume that's available.
We got more than that kind of thought, though. Chiefs, Titans are right there with the Falcons, I think, where, to your point, RB37, he would be looking like a bargain there. With this Falcons backfield, it's one of these situations where I don't want to go too far into it. Like, we don't need to rank the Packers wide receivers right now.
I don't think any of those guys will end up being the guy by the time we're done with everything.
But if you want to talk about someone that is just truly free, like what's Mike Davis going as like RB 87 or something right now? Like, I don't think there's an upside. I think we would have seen them give Davis complete control of that backfield when CPAC got hurt last year. What happened instead? Quadri Allison kind of came in and continued to make it a split. So maybe I'm just holding on to, the small chance of Mike Davis breaking out because he had the good 2020 and was kind enough to come on this podcast once upon a time. But yeah, probably going to be a situation where maybe Mike Davis does get like 8 to 10 combined carries and targets per week. And that would, I think, surprise people. But there's probably just not enough of a ceiling regardless to really be chasing in Fantasyland. Patriots went ahead and signed Ty Montgomery 2-year contract, potentially worth as much as $4 million. I think there's two kind of possibilities here. Now, we know Brandon Bolden is now with the Raiders. The Patriots did re-sign James White, only $500K guaranteed. We did not see the Patriots use a 4 running back committee last year. What happened was in weeks 1 and 2, it was James White on passing downs, Ramondre Stevenson, Damien Harris splitting stuff on early downs. Brandon Bolden was a pure special teamer. I believe he only played 2 offensive snaps while James White was healthy last year. Once James White was out of the picture, Bolden came in and worked as a pass down back. So with Ty Montgomery, I wonder, one, is he competing with James White for that scat back role? Because again, not that much money is owed to James White. He is, starting to get a little bit long in the tooth. Ty Montgomery is not exactly a spring chicken as well, but my question is Montgomery competing with James White for that role, or is he just replacing Brandon Bolden? Because I do think, Dwayne, if James White is playing the usual James White role, he's a nice value at the end of drafts. Montgomery does throw some uncertainty into that, though.
Yeah, I think he throws a little bit. I'm gonna the contract that James White got is the most concerning part. But I think overall, I'm still going to lean to James White. He's been part of that organization for a long time. They know what he is. So I'm going to lean that way until we, hear something different, really. To your point, I think Ty Montgomery could still be helping out with special teams. Nice player. They can move around. I think, if you look at the Patriots, they always love signing these guys that have a lot of utility, right? And
they got CPAT a few years ago.
Yeah, you look at Montgomery, he can play on special teams. He can play running back. He could line up in the slot as a receiver for you. He's just a guy that can do a lot of different things for your team. And that's the type of player that Bill Belichick just seems to, really kind of gravitate to having on his team. Doesn't always really mean something like a fantasy role. But to your point, I think the best way to think of him is really he's the Brandon Bolden role, meaning if any of the other guys get hurt, you could see Montgomery step into a bigger role. Heading into the season, I would really think that it's Damien Harris, to your point, and Stevenson splitting the early down work, slight edge to Harris, and then you got James White handling the passing down duties.
Bengals went ahead and replaced CJ Uzomah seemingly with Hayden Hurst. Just a 1-year deal, though. I didn't see the specific financials. That's kind of thing with free agency. Sometimes we get them, sometimes we don't. Drew Sample does remain employed by the Bengals as well. I don't think this is something we need to worry about too much, Dwayne, because Uzomah last year, man, he was healthy the whole season. He played a full-time role, and he was the clear-cut, usually number 5 pass game option in that offense behind the big 3 receivers and usually a running back as well. Uzomah finished as the overall tight end 19, even worse on a per-game basis. Any sort of allure for Hayden Hurst as a late-round pick?
Yeah, I think just a super late round. I mean, he is a former first round pick. Debatable, like should he have been,
Right.
with the Ravens. But I think he could come in and do everything Uzama did. Like you're just going to run into like when to play him. Like he's better. I like him in a best ball format better than I do in a redraft where I have to choose the weeks that I'm actually going to start him. I think that's what's really going to be tough.
I think you have him in the right spot. Tight end 25 behind. We'll see where Austin Hooper winds up, but behind Ricky Seals-Jones with the Giants, behind Evan Ingram with the Jaguars, behind Hunter Henry with the Patriots. I might put him ahead of CJ Uzama, honestly, after seeing the Tyler Conklin deal with the Jets. We just need to see.
I need, and you notice like I've got 224s here. I need to update my ranking.
You're good, brother. It is March 18th after all. With Hurst, we just need to see if he has, because look, if he splits anything with Drew Sample, like neither of those guys are going to be anything close to fantasy relevant. Cannot do it then. If he is featured though, like he is someone that at a minimum will be, on the waiver wire, the right matchup, DFS play, all that. But yeah, don't think Hayden Hurst is going to factor too much into traditional one tight end leagues. Finally, just some quick hits before we get out of here. Vikings went ahead and restructured Adam Thielen's contract. I guess there were some murmurs that he could be a cut candidate, but nope, he will be back continuing to work as the Vikings' number 2 wide receiver in 2022 and beyond. The Bears addressed their wide receiver room in a major way. They signed Byron Pringle and Equanimeous St. Brown to 1-year deals. They could be in 3 wide receiver sets. They also, who else do they even have right there, man? It's so bad in Chicago right now. They got Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney is great, but man, it's 2022. You're legally allowed to have more than one great wide receiver. Byron Pringle probably projects as a starter right now. Do we want anything to do with them in fantasy? Absolutely not. 49ers went ahead and signed Ray McLeod. That's like, we were talking earlier about Cordero Patterson going to the 49ers. I wonder if Ray is like the kind of the cheaper version of Patterson that they decided to get. He can offer some goodness in the return game. Probably will be their number 4 wide receiver, backing up Juwan Jennings. Even if by some miracle he beats out Jennings for the number 3 wide receiver job, there's so much Kyle Juszczyk in this run-first offense with Trey Lance under center. Do not expect any wide receiver other than Debo or Ayuk to get much going. And finally, the Lions signed tight end Garrett Griffin, who is a blocker and should not be impacting TJ Hawkinson's status as one of the more well-fed tight ends in the league. Any of these ringing bells for you, Dwayne?
No.
Very, very fair.
No, Jared's making a graphic right now for Twitter or for something on Twitter, and he's like, "Hey, is Devante Adams, this wide receiver for you? Is all the guys we've just been talking about? Darren Waller, is he still wide receiver 4 or tight end 4, or is he 5?" So no, man, nothing on any of those guys for me.
Okay, everyone. Thank you, as always, for tuning in to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. We will be back, I think, on Monday morning, breaking down whatever kind of news has happened over the weekend, and then looking like Wednesday or Thursday next week, after a lot of these final pieces have fallen, Dwayne and I can go back through each and every roster, talk through all the signings, and basically just also look at what are now like the remaining holes to look at for the draft. Because once free agency is figured out, if we still do have, a situation like the Atlanta backfield or like the Green Bay wide receiver room that is just completely wide open. A lot of people I know like to bet on props with the draft, or you're just trying to, get ahead on your rookie rankings. I think, really figuring out those most opportunistic position groups in the league is going to help a lot with that. So, Dwayne, anything you want to get off your chest before we get out of here?
No, I think we're good, man. I was just checking Twitter to make sure nothing had broke, while we were sitting here chatting, like, the any moment now Deshaun Watson thing, continues to loom, Ian,
we already covered it. We're good.
We've covered it both ways. Of course, now he'll sign, change his mind, and he'll be back with the Browns. So no, I think we're good for now. We still, again, got quite a few, like the running backs, man, they're still sitting out there. Rashad Penny, Leonard Fournette. So we'll have a lot of good stuff, hopefully, coming early next week as some of these names continue to sign.
Do you think some of those running backs could just last till like August?
I think some of them could. I think it's a possibility. I think what happens though is
maybe like
some of them may choose to hold out and wait for injuries and things like that, depending on who you are. Like I could see a Fournette being ballsy enough to do that. I think Rashad Penny probably at some point is like, okay, I'm going to take what I can before the draft happens. Because he's got such a short, really resume of being, healthy and is that last 5 games was really great, but how much are people really going to weight that? I think a player like him probably doesn't want to wait until after the draft. Fournette's done enough. Like, he knows he can hold out and probably get a little bit more money, especially with Tampa. Because, like, as soon as they get to training camp and Tom Brady's pissed off about Deshaun Vaughn, like, they're going to have to go get Leonard Fournette.
We'll keep an eye on all that. For Dwayne, I'm Ian. Thanks as always for tuning in to the PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. And until next time, take care, everybody.